the Spirit of life who dwells in me, He gives life to my mortal body. So when this plague broke out, he had a Dutch co-worker. They took a hold of these scriptures. At that time, they didn't have any immediate cure. Thousands of people were dying all around them. They stayed there to bury the dead. And he records in his sermons, at times they had to put 3 or 4 bodies in the same grave, buried. But they stayed to serve the churches, serve the community during such a time. John G. Lake was a missionary. This is between 1908 to 1913. He was a minister of God. Started off in Chicago and then he ministered in several other places. But between 1908 to 1913, he went as a missionary to South Africa. So he spent 5 years there in South Africa as a missionary. Ministering, amazing ministry. History, looking back, a lot of impact that we see, the Pentecostal impact in South Africa had its beginnings primarily through the work that took place through his ministry from that time. But he shares that during that time, while he was there, a plague broke out in the regions where he was ministering. A bubonic plague broke out. But now, I want to, as we share this testimony, don't just run off and do something presumptuously. The point is we need to journey to that same place of faith, right? So when this plague broke out, John G. Lake believed these verses, Romans 8:2 and 11, that the Spirit of life who dwells in me, He gives life to my mortal body. So when this plague broke out, he had a co-worker, a Dutch co-worker. They took a hold of these scriptures. At that time, they didn't have any immediate cure. Thousands of people were dying all around them. They stayed there to bury the dead. And he records in his sermons, at times, they had to put 3 or 4 bodies in the same grave, buried. But they stayed to serve the churches, serve the community during such a time. Now the government, of course, was trying to, do what it could to address the situation. So they had sent a group of medical doctors, and they came to John G. Lake and said, "Hey, how are you staying here? What is it that's keeping you unaffected by the plague? And you are actually handling all the bodies. And what's going on here?" And John G. Lake shared. He said, "I believe in the Spirit of life who dwells in me." This is what he writes, and I'm just quoting from his recorded sermon, this part. You can read the whole sermon, but I'm just reading a section of it. He said, so when he was asked, "What is it?" he said, "Brother, that is the law of the Spirit of life in Christ Jesus. I believe that just as long as I keep my soul in contact with the living God, so that His Spirit is flowing into my soul and body, that no germ will ever attach itself to me, for the Spirit of God will kill it." That's what he believed. And he goes on, he says, and I'm just jumping around in his sermon here. "Suppose, on the other hand, my soul had been under the law of death, and I were in fear and darkness, the very opposite would have been the result. The result would have been that my body would have absorbed the germs. These would have generated disease, and I would have died." But he said, the law of the Spirit of life in Christ Jesus, when a man's spirit and a man's body are filled with the blessed presence of God, it oozes out of his pores of your flesh and kills the germs. Look, he believed it, literally. And he lived it. He says here, "You who are sick, put yourself in contact with God's law of life. Read His word with a view of enlightening your heart, so that you'll be able to look up with more confidence and believe Him. pray that the Spirit of God will come into your soul, take possession of your body, and its power will make you well. That is the exercise of the law of the Spirit of life in Christ Jesus. And I was saying, that is putting this into practice.
Thank you for listening. We trust this message was a blessing to you. For more free resources, including sermons, sermon notes, and books, please visit apcwo.org. For information on APC Bible College in Bangalore, visit apcbiblecollege.org. Do remember to download the All People's Church Bangalore app from the Apple or Google Play Store.